Jane, welcome to Hive Talk. I'm really pleased to have you here. You've been going through some things. The Flynn Foundation, I'm really interested to know, because we've heard a lot about it over the airways. What inspired you? What was the first thing that drove you to saying, right, this is time for me to take control, I'm going to set up a foundation?
Mark, first of all, thank you very, very much for having me here this morning with you. It's a great pleasure. My first, actually, passion, or the depth of my passion, was in my own family, 30-odd years ago, when my brother, with 3 very young children, and his wife, seriously mentally ill. And at that time, in Ireland, there was nothing, actually. There was no support to help her, to help the family. And we were all affected by what was going on. So Josie was actually put into a mental institution locally and labelled mad, alongside 50, 60, God knows how many other people.
I mean, that's a days when there was...
Terrible.
There were sanatoriums, weren't they?
Yes,
and they just
exactly.
And
my brother, bless him, always believed she would get better. There was a solution. And on one occasion when I was on holiday at home, and I said to my brother, look, we're going to go and see the head psychiatrist, Dr. Murphy. And we had a meeting with him, with Josie present, believe it or not. He insisted on that. And he made it very clear to my brother, Josie is never going to get better. The only opportunity for her is to take her medication, and that is it. And it was, we both walked out of there because she was still actually a patient in the institution. So we just said to each other, well, where do we go from here? And I said, Pat, you really have to listen to Dr. Murphy, really and truly. And it was at that point that I actually said to my brother, one day, and he would tell you this, he's still alive, thank God, today. He said, Jane, he said, what are you going to say? And I said, Pat, one day I am going to set up a foundation for people like Josie.
Wow. So it's been a long-term ambition.
And it's taken a long time for that to happen, for one reason or another reason. But as soon as that opportunity came, sadly it was in COVID, believe it or not, because I had been working with another charity in London for over 20 years, 25 plus years, called ICAP, Immigrant Counselling and Psychotherapy, on their development committee. So I was aware that things were changing for mental health. And I was aware also, when COVID hit us all like a brick, that many, many more people would be affected because of the way we had to live, you know, not being able to go out, children not being able to go to school, see their friends, live a normal life, all of the things that COVID brought with it. So that's when actually I rang Alexis at Fortis and I asked Alexis straight out, I said, Alexis, would you extend your business to be able to take on people who cannot pay for local people?
Just before we get to that, James, I'm really interested to see how we got to where we are now from that. Clearly, I mean, that's a lived experience that you've described about your sister, and that's I never knew that part of it. It's really interesting because when you look at how mental health services have developed in quite recent years, because what you're describing wasn't that long ago.
No, exactly.
And how things have moved on, and we've seen that in the news about mental health and physical health should have parity. We should be looking at mental health as a real health issue, not just something that happens over there.
And that is absolutely true. And it's a genuine illness. There is no question about that. And I think that when I spoke to Alexis, and she was just over the moon, she said, absolutely, Jane. And I said, look, I will fundraise, Michael and I will fundraise. And I said, and you can take the people on. And with the money, we brought in £12,500 in a matter of months.
So just rewind back. So when you met with Alexis, this is the time that you decided you were going to set up a foundation. That was what your drive was.
Exactly.
Okay, so you went to see the professionals, the counsellors in the Lexus at Fortis. So that gave you the tools to be able to deliver.
Exactly. And also there was behind the background, was also, as you will be aware, Mark, Michael and I had been fundraising for other Wish Upon a Star and Jane Elizabeth Cady, Cash for Kids and Community Linkage, and we've been doing all of that.
You were non-stop. You and Michael were non-stop fundraising.
Before that.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, look, we've really got, people knows us, they trust us. We say if we do something, we'll do it. I just thought this is the time. So when COVID then, when we'd finished that fundraise, I thought that's it.
Do you know that's interesting? And there's a it goes off topic a bit, but there's a really interesting point here that, I mean, you and Michael were successful, Michael being your husband,
yes,
are successful business people in your own right with driver hire. And but yet you chose that, that's a lot to choose. Well, as well as running my business, I'm now going to set up. That's kind of giving back, isn't it? It's putting back into the community, following your aspirations to make a difference, but to actually do it.
Yes, that's true. And the other side, obviously, was that when my first husband died, which was all very sudden and a terrible shock to me, I needed counselling myself.
Ah, okay.
And so I was extremely lucky, the person actually that looked after me for one whole year. So nobody can come along and say to me, it doesn't work, because I know it does work.
That's really important, isn't it?
I know it works.
Yeah.
So I'd seen both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to put them together, basically, to help as many people in our community here that is possible, that funds will provide for. I mean, we're now up to 40 with Fortis Therapy and 150 at Links Inspire.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it never ceases to amaze me that it's always people who have been impacted themselves, whether it's through their family or individually, that have the most drive about making a difference because of that experience, I guess.
Well, that's true.
It's something that they really
that is
understand.
true, Mark. That is absolutely true. And I also feel very lucky in life. And I'd feel that it's my duty also to give back to my community, because I feel that I am extremely lucky and have been very lucky. And I get the greatest pleasure I get from my life is actually doing that.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Well,
nothing gives me more pleasure than actually seeing those reports coming in from Fortis Therapy, meeting the people up at Links Inspire, listening to their story, listening to where they were at the beginning when they came into Links Inspire, listening to them when they went through their first programme at Links Inspire, which is funded by the NHS. But those people who need more and can't afford to pay for more, then the O'Flynn Foundation steps in and we give them that extra.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. So you're working with Links Inspire and with Fortis. You've started the O'Flynn Foundation. It's live and kicking. So what is it now? What are you actively doing now as part of the O'Flynn Foundation?
Well, of course, it's an ongoing thing. It never stops. All the time I'm looking for funding, which is very difficult. There is no question about that. But and I've always said this, passion overcomes fear. And that is it for me, is my passion actually overcomes the fear that I have, that I know is there, that it won't actually be able to continue.
Yeah.
But I think it's got to, it has to, it must.
Yeah.
That's what I say to myself.
Okay, so and that's evident in everything that you do, that you've got passion behind it. I mean, people, anyone who sat with you in a room for 5 minutes knows that you're passionate about this. And rightly so. So let's just have a look at what the O'Flynn Foundation, if someone's thinking, well, I want to get behind this and support it, what kind of thing could they expect that if they donated to the O'Flynn Foundation, they got to help you in some way? What's being delivered by the O'Flynn Foundation? Can you give me a typical example?
Well, I think what is delivered from the O'Flynn Foundation is we are a beacon of light for those people in our community who are seriously in need of support, therapy and support, and simply have not been able to get it through our wonderful NHS, and I will never criticise the NHS, but we're all aware that it needs more infrastructure, more funding, more therapists, all of those things, clinics, all of those things that we do not have. So we can come along and we can actually step in and take some of those people on board and help them change their life, give them back their self-worth, give them back a meaning to live. All of those things that the rest of us probably take for granted.
Yeah. And you're using professional clinicians, trained counsellors to do that.
I work with Fortis Therapy. We work with Fortis Therapy because I've known Alexis for a considerable time. I'm very aware of her reputation. She is excellent, and her team. And also Links Inspire. I mean, seriously, what gives me great pleasure, Mark, is when I go up and sit with one of those people we've helped at Links Inspire, because I can be there and have a coffee with them and a chat. You get to know them. And they're just so happy. I mean, my website is, you know what I mean, it's there, the stories are there, and there's more coming up the line, you know, of people how it has benefited them. They wouldn't have had that opportunity if our funding wasn't there to do it.
And that's got to be so rewarding for you to see that had you not started this foundation, where would these people
exactly
go? The waiting lists in NHS are so long.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the absolute truth about what we do, why we do it, you know, to feel, to see, to touch. And that's it, because I can see what we do. I can actually see it. I can feel it because I'm talking to people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And touch it. And that's what it makes it so real. You're helping individuals. I'm not writing a cheque and giving it to an organisation and saying, get on with it.
Yeah.
You do what you please with it. Yeah. No, the foundation is for individual people whom I actually can either see a report coming in when they're finished their treatment, or I can meet them. And I can see for myself and judge for myself, really and truly, the benefits of what we actually give to our community.
That's a rare thing, isn't it? For an organisation to be able to be doing things for members of the community that they are close to, that you can actually meet. So you see, I suppose funders will get enormous satisfaction from knowing that what they're supporting, what they're helping, is helping someone that could be just down the road from them, just down the street from them.
That's right.
In their community.
Exactly. And that's the joy I get from it, Mark. Absolutely. You know, if I won the lottery tomorrow, my goodness, there'd be no stopping me.
Yeah.
You know, it would just make so much of it. Like we had a conversation recently about another part of the foundation, education for young people. And that would just be so fantastic to be able to do that. Because again, you're picking people up and giving them an opportunity, do you know what I mean, to enhance, as I said, their future career for them. Yeah. And that's just, again, something that I'd love to be able to do. And God willing, I will be able to do it.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's much stopping you, to be honest, when you set out to do this.
The thing is that if I do decide on something, I try to actually make it happen.
Yeah,
you know?
No, you could,
but it is difficult, and there's no point in saying otherwise. It's difficult out there. We're all kind of like, I see us all in a pool and we're all in there fishing for the same thing. Yeah. And it is hard. And some people locally have been so supportive. There's no question about that. And I really treasure that support. You know, every year they sponsor a golf hole for me at my annual golf day. That's our biggest fundraiser, our biggest fundraiser of the whole year, because you know, it's the same people are coming more or less from the beginning, get a few new ones here and there. And if I get sponsorship for each golf hole, that will pay for running the event. So then the ticket price basically then goes into the foundation. And the thing about the O'Flynn Foundation is our overheads are virtually zero. The only thing that comes out of our funding is my website, just for the hosting of that. And I think something to Microsoft or something. It's just such a little bit of printing here and there. We try and do most things in office if we can, all of that. But there's just, I wouldn't spend £1,000 a year on, not even that, anything like, not at all, not even 500, I should come to think of it.
So that's when you combine the entrepreneur in you with the charity raising, you can find creative ways of doing it. And I'm really interested in things like the golf tournament that you lay on.
Yeah,
that's a real sign of I think of the way you can no longer just stand there with your hand out and say, well, give me some money. You have to do stuff about it. And, being a business person who gets things done, as you've done with your business, that's what you apply to charity. Is that how you look at it?
That's how I look at it, really and truly. As I said, I just feel, okay, well, somebody might say no, but I don't get upset about it. And for a very, very, very long time, I don't get upset about it, because there'll be a reason why they said no. Because, lots of businesses will actually donate a certain amount of money to charity, and they'll have their own, basically, favourites that they want to support or that's close to their heart, which I completely and utterly understand. So I don't get upset about it, but I just have to find somebody else who will say yes.
Yeah.
You see, so that's...
You move on to the...
I mean, it's funny, this morning somebody cancelled their place at the International Women's Day for next week at the Healy Manor. But then somebody else, then I got an email saying that I'm bringing my mother. So that's great. So, and that's what when it really lifts my spirits. I think, well, you can't get upset about these things, because you just have to keep going, because this is what I want to do until, I'm unable to do it. And I want to do it, and I want to do much, much, much more. So I would say to local businesses, if they can help, and it doesn't matter how small a donation, it all is going to a great cause. And we're helping people in our own community, remember, who would not get that help. And do you know, Mark, some of the applications that comes in for mental health, I mean, it's just, honestly, it really and truly, I mean, sometimes tears.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because I've heard, I mean, I'm nowhere near as in depth as you've got into this, but you can't help but hear about the increase in male suicide, young men taking their own lives,
children,
and some of the anguish that the children are going through in their circumstances that they've been brought up in. There seems to be so much, and now that but a bit like lifting the lid on Pandora's box. Now we understand that mental health is an issue.
It's a big issue.
Suddenly there's a lot
and
there.
It really annoys me sometimes. You will hear the odd person saying, oh, they're putting it on, do you know what I mean? And actually, look, we all know that might happen in some cases, of course, because that's just life. It doesn't matter whether it's mental health or something else. There's always somebody who will try to take advantage. But actually, there are people out there who are desperate. And those are the people that we are helping.
Absolutely.
Not the people, basically, that just says, it's not the bad backs, all that type of thing. And really and truly, to give those people back. In fact, a couple of years ago, I met one of the ladies we helped. I had no idea that she was going to be in the same company as Michael and I. And she didn't know I was coming either to it, which actually was probably good. So we got talking. And she was telling me her story and about how this foundation actually had saved her life.
Wow.
And then her aunt came over and said, this was the woman and this was the man that actually gave that grant for you to have that treatment.
Wow, that's amazing.
And she burst into tears.
I bet she did.
Yeah, and her life has completely changed. She's got her own flat now, and you know what I mean, life, and she's back at work, and those are the things that are so important. Do you know what I mean? And if even if it was only one person, but just to hear that, to hear it from her, and she had no idea who she was speaking to, which I thought was really funny.
That's real testimony, really isn't it? That she would have talked without knowing who you were.
And she had no, and then her aunt came along and said, "Yeah, these are the two." People.
And that, there's something in when we're talking about the wider community, the business community that we both of us operate in. There's a real lesson, there's a real message in there. I think that from just hearing your passion when you talk about it, when you give back, when you start doing things like you're doing, when you start introducing the idea of supporting those less fortunate than yourselves or who are undergoing something that you could only imagine in your worst dreams, that when you start to work selflessly like that, the first beneficiary is you.
That is correct.
You feel good.
That is correct, because I feel good, actually, and I love when I see a report coming in from Fortis when somebody who's been through actually a programme and the benefits to them. Now, of course, one has to be realistic. It won't be a 10 out of 10. No. And that's just life again. But, an 8 out of 10 is bloody good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm quite happy with that, because that you know, we're all human at the end of the day. We all deal with things in a different way and all the rest of it. And sometimes something else intervenes in that person's life and pulls them back. And there isn't anything really that can be done.
Yeah.
And it's very hard. But I know that they will get the very, very best actually support at Fortis. I know that. And that's what makes me very happy.
Absolutely.
Because I really want to deal, because I remember, Mark, actually, when we COVID, and I said to Michael, look, we're going to get involved in this, because this is just going to be really, really difficult for so many people. You know, changing your life overnight and not actually having anything in place. You know, like if you've got a small accommodation and you've got 3 children and a partner or a husband you can't stand the sight of, and you're thinking, bloody hell, they're going to be all here all day on top of each other. And I've got no money actually to get computers in for the kids, for self-schooling. It's just going to be terrible. And all of these things are going through my mind, that would be happening in homes up and down the country, all over the place. And I thought, right, we've actually got to do something about this. And it was at that point that I thought, yes, Alexis is the person. She's the person. And I was just so excited when she said, absolutely, yes, Jane, let's go for it.
Yeah.
You know, and money was coming, just flowing in.
Yeah.
Absolutely couldn't believe it.
Well, when I'm not surprised, to be honest, because when you combine someone who's got the drive, the entrepreneurial approach, the business acumen, and the passion that you have, and you combine that with a professional, a clinical professional who can deliver what it is that you know is needed out there. When you bring those two forces together, I should imagine there's no stopping it.
It did work, and it worked really, really well. And it gave Michael and I that platform as well, basically, then with a deeper, actually, confidence to start the foundation. And you know, Mark, the day that email came through from the Charity Commission, I just couldn't believe it. I thought, I've been reading this right, the 6th of May, and I thought, the application was approved within days, in the same week, you know, and Claire, who's helped me so much to set it all up and everything, she said, Jane, don't be, she said, upset or disappointed now, she said, because they usually come back and they'll have questions and all that. We didn't have any. But you know what I did, which I thought might have helped? The year before we set up the foundation, because I knew this is what we were going to do, and that was it. It was just there, and I thought, yeah, we've got to do it. I actually wrote a letter to the Charity Commission, and I explained in my letter exactly what it was I wished to do and how I wanted to do it, who I wanted to help, and why. I got a very nice email back to say, we love it, go for it, or words to that effect.
Amazing.
And I used that letter again when the application went in. I sent the letter with the application. Absolutely.
That's canny, that is. That's canny. That's not just a...
And I think in a way that may have helped.
Of course it did. Of course
I don't know.
Look, it doesn't matter what you think about processes and large organisations like the Charity Commission. They are people at the end of it.
Yes.
And if you know that you're communicating like you did with that letter, you start to turn the odds in your favour. That's really smart there.
I wish the same thing would work actually when I sent in an application for funding to various organisations.
It doesn't always work, as you say.
Well,
as someone said, and this will apply to you as well, funding as well as your raising. Someone said to me, just because you can't win every time, it doesn't mean you stop fighting. And that's absolutely true.
But there is one thing I'd just like to bring up, which has been poised as an obstacle to me on several occasions. And I think it needs to change. Now, what it is I apply for a grant, right? And in fact, I had a conversation last week with a company who charge for the services to actually do applications.
Right.
People like me. And she turned around and said at the end, this has been said to me before, well, actually, no, we can't help you because we would be giving you funds, or the O'Flynn Foundation funds, and then you're passing those funds on to somebody else. So you're not doing the work in-house. The O'Flynn Foundation, you're not psychiatrists and you're not therapists.
Wow.
Right. Now, that basically needs to change, because those people, those 40 people that we have put through Fortis therapy, and 150 that we are funding at Links Inspire, we do 50 every year at Links Inspire, they wouldn't get that help. And so there's this thing is that, I just feel that needs to change with funding organisations, that the fact that we are not actually the professionals and we're passing that money on because they can't get that funding.
No. And
they,
surely,
do you know what I mean?
I do know. And surely it's much better that the professionals are focusing on delivering the services that are so sought after than writing funding applications.
Yeah, exactly. And so that has been an obstacle, which is really sad, basically, to be honest with you. How that'll pan out in the future, I do not know. But I think it needs to be addressed.
Something like, seems like a discussion with an MP might be a good idea to start.
I couldn't possibly comment.
I don't doubt it'll never be dropped until such time as you've had your say on these kind of things.
No, but it does need to be actually addressed, really and truly, because that could be very helpful to the foundation to get a bit more funding in. Because, we all know what services cost these days. Do you know what I mean? I had an ongoing battle, of course, with HMRC on the VAT. And I mean, I actually wrote to the actual very, very top man at HMRC to explain to him why I feel that our foundation should not be subjected to VAT because of the work we do. And we're picking people up, basically, that otherwise in when things would be normal within the NHS, that they would have to fund them there. But we're picking them up. So far, I haven't won that battle yet. So but so far, I will say so far, yes, so far. But these are the important things, and these are the challenges that you meet, like any business, Mark, where you meet various challenges in your business for one reason or another reason. And these are the challenges that I have met. Do you know, it's been the funding, then that we're passing on the funds to others to do the work. And as I said, VAT. So, and out of my control, unfortunately. But I don't sit back and not do something about it. Because, as you say, and we all agree, you don't win every battle.
No. And thank goodness you're doing that, because those kind of challenges that might be met by clinicians or by people who are actually delivering, they would have to drop it. They haven't got the time to be and the nous to be able to do that or to meet those challenges. So thank goodness they've got the Flynn Foundation, I suppose, and organisations like yours in place to say, no, these are challenges that we're going to take head on.
Another thing I'd like to mention actually is the speed at how we can work, how we work. Whereas if an application comes in to us, like yesterday, an application came in. That's right. That application, that money will be paid out before this week is out. So that's how quick. If the money's there, we can actually deal with it. The application goes straight out to the trustees. We all work quickly, say, yes, we're going to do this. Then I can go back to Fortis and say, right, funds are on the way.
And what would you say to people? I mean, it's incredible when you consider the months and months, sometimes blending into years, that people have to wait for mental health services when they're going through.
Yeah, exactly.
For all the reasons that it's not political about it, all the reasons we understand about the NHS and the strains it's under. But the fact that you can deliver that within days of somebody applying
within
for
days,
it is immensely important. So
it's really important.
What would you say to people who are saying, well, why should we donate to or pay for some funding for something that should be delivered by the state? We're just supplementing what the government should be doing. What do you say to people like that?
The thing about it is that, yes, I understand on it, and yes, it gets said, I'm sure, many, many times. But the reality is, that's what I think about, is the reality.
Yeah.
Because basically my conscience tells me, actually, yes, that may be the case, but actually that person is going to be left out in the cold. Yeah. They're falling through the cracks while I'm actually standing on my pedestal and saying, oh, the NHS should be doing that.
Great point. Absolutely right.
And so that's where I come in. Basically.
Taking action rather than
it's taking
talking
action.
about it. Yeah.
And said, as my mum and dad used to always say, at no point, well, my dad in particular, and if there was something going on that needed actually to be sorted, he'd say, no point in talking over the garden fence, Molly, about it. He'd say, get to the core of it.
Great advice from your dad.
And it's true.
Yeah.
You just, so if you can do something about it, you do something about it.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd like to say too, anybody who will see this podcast, is what does the O'Flynn Foundation need most? It needs funding. And I would be over the moon. Any business who actually has a charity of the year, their chosen charity of the year, the O'Flynn Foundation, to go on their list.
Yeah.
1 year, fantastic.
Yeah.
Or make a donation in some shape or form. So I'm now looking for sponsorship for 18 golf holes. I think I've got 7 or 8 actually that has been agreed.
Okay.
But I need the rest of them
When is
done.
the golf tournament?
The 17th of July, again at the fabulous Laceby Manor. A great venue.
Great.
We put on, actually, out of our own pockets, we help with the food to make sure that those players have a really good meal at the end of the day. Because one thing about my family, food is always important, and good food at a function. Do you know what I mean? You won't see any sandwiches or anything like that, for that type of event.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important. So we always have a great day at Laceby Manor.
I've heard so. I've heard great things
there's
about
really,
that
really
tournament.
good reviews about it. And as I said, it's our biggest fundraiser of the year, because that day can help 7 or 8 people.
Wow.
Basically. So that is really good. We're doing the International Women's Day next Thursday, the 7th of March at Healing Manor. It's been our 3rd year now we're doing it. Numbers are down this year on last year. Up on, the first year, down on last year. So there's still time. There's still plenty of places left.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So if there's anybody listening to this podcast that would like to come, all they need to do is just to drop me an email, jane@o'flynnfoundation.org. My website's there. Just putting in O'Flynn Foundation, the website comes up.
Of course.
Or just, as I said, there's flyers out all the time on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. So it has been well publicised, both by Healing Manor, by Fortis Therapy, and Links Inspire. So we're all out there pushing for it. Absolutely.
It wouldn't be a podcast with Jane O'Flynn without her saying, come on. And quite right too, because you can't be passionate about something and ignore
No,
that.
you can't. And I've learned that over the years. When I was fundraising for ICAP, and those were in the good old days. There's no question about that. Money was flowing in London. And my job was to get in very good auctionable prizes for the annual dinner. And what a joy that was.
Yeah.
What a joy.
Yeah.
What a joy. I loved every second of it.
Yeah.
We had the most amazing prizes, Michael and I. Absolutely. 10 grand in the night, no problem at all. One person, us. But those days are gone. You don't get that anymore, sadly. But, we have to carry on, really and truly. Work has to be done. There's very necessary work to be done in the field, and we have to do the best that we can to actually make our contribution to it.
Yeah. And we adjust and adapt to the world around us.
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah. But, sometimes that's good. Yeah. But I think it's one's attitude it's extremely important, that you don't lose hope. You don't lose that passion. Do you know what I mean? I think my passion is so strong, I will never lose it.
No, there's no doubt about it.
One person that you and I both know, who will, for this occasion, I won't name him, but he said to me one evening, we were having a drink up in Healing Manor, and after an event, and he said, Jane, he said, your passion, he said, is burning my face. That's what he said to me. And the thing is, it's true. I actually feel it that deeply. There is no question about that.
Well, if there's anything that I've learned, both from my past life and definitely from you, is nothing great is ever achieved without enthusiasm and passion.
No, that's right. Well, I'm speaking to the man who makes it all happen too, yourself.
Well, yeah, different fields. Look, there has been so much to learn from you in this podcast. I'm really grateful. And I think it's not only inspiring to support the O'Flynn Foundation, but it's also inspiring to people to think to themselves, well, what can I do? It doesn't matter what field it's in, but what can I do? What have I got a passion for? What do I really believe in? And I can think about it, or I can do something about it. And here you are as evidence of what happens when you actually do something about it.
Yes, that's right. You have to have that drive, and
Yeah.
and I just feel that it's almost. I was talking to a friend last night who's now in London doing a course and taking a completely different path in life, or that's perhaps will happen. And she lost her husband just before Christmas. Terribly sad. But you know something? The fact of the matter is that, and you know, she's a school teacher by profession and has been for many years. Now she wants to be a personal dresser, and she's on this very, very expensive course in London. But she fits the bill. She has the figure, she has the looks, she dresses like she's walked out of Chanel, and that's it. And I feel that, you know, what you say, what you present to the public, do you know what I mean, is extremely important in life. You know what I mean? That I'm sure you've said this many times. That you're listening to an attendance, say at a conference or a seminar or something, and the speaker gets up, and you think, oh God, do I have to spend how many hours listening to this rubbish? Or you really and truly are disappointed in them. Then there are other times that you just never want to leave the room.
Yes.
They're so fantastic.
Of course.
Just so fantastic. You want to listen to them forever. Yeah. They pull you in straight away.
Because they tell a good story that's authentic and real, and you can feel their passion
and you
about
can
it.
feel it's real.
Yeah.
And that's basically, I don't know where I come in, to be quite frank. I don't know. I mean, I sometimes really feel like, I suppose, shy about speaking out, and sometimes I do. But then sometimes I think, well, okay, I've got to. I've really got to say what I feel. I've got to actually tell other people what I feel.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then I just get on with it.
Well, look, I think in the round and in conclusion, there is, I think people will be surprised to hear you mention the word shy, because you are evidently, by this podcast and by everything that you do, you are authentic. You've got a real story to tell. And above all, you are clearly making a difference. And look, I wish you the best of luck with the Flynn Foundation. I hope it's going to grow from strength to strength. I kind of think it will. It's almost an inevitable conclusion for what you're getting behind.
I think you're right, Mark.
Yeah.
I think it will, actually, because we're now almost 3 years since actually that email came through to say you're on. And we've done a lot in 3 years, and in difficult times as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had COVID was still basically in the background, and lots of other things happen. Yeah. And I think that just to keep going and to be able, as I said, to help as many people as we have, it's a privilege in a way, really and truly.
That's a great note to end on.
Yeah, it's a privilege. It really is a privilege. And I feel hugely fortunate in life to have been given that opportunity. And I know one person who would be very proud of me, and that is my father and my first husband. It really and truly that I have achieved, that I have done it. Because, my dad, of course, was dead before, basically, there was a situation with my brother and his wife, but Paddy remembers it, and it was terrible. I felt I had to do something about it.
Well, you clearly did, and we're proud of you for doing that as well in this community.
Thank you.
So look, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. It's been mind-blowing, really. I've learned so much, and I've just, if it could ever be possible, I've just grown in respect for what you're doing. So all power to you. Thank you so much,
Mark.
Jane.
And thank you very much for all the support that you give me too, because all of these things basically are important and they count. And you feel very much part of your community.
We do.
As well,
okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. Thanks very much, Jane. Cheers.
Thank you.